You will obey our commands! Do not defy us, girl!
I serve the house, not
Insolence! I know my duty. The time has come. You must depart at once.
Yes, Your Majesty.
The journey is perilous. Be vigilant.
We will, sire. I have to warn the others. The babies! Something's wrong! They're stirring! What is it? I'm coming! Hold on! Check the others! Hurry!
I scrubbed the marble floor on my knees when the first cry cut through the palace. Again, one maid muttered behind me. "Those pups never stop," another replied. "Royal blood, my foot," someone scoffed. I kept my head down and scrubbed harder. No one ever looked at me when they spoke. That was the rule of surviving here. I was an omega maid, the lowest of the low, the kind people talked around instead of to. My name didn't matter. My face didn't matter. I existed only to clean what others dirted. "Hey, Omega," a guard barked. "You missed a spot." "I'll fix it," I said quickly. My voice came out soft, careful. I learned long ago that loud voices brought pain. I wiped the floor again, even though it was already clean. The guard walked away without another word. The crying came again, louder this time. "It's been hours," a healer said nearby. "They tried everything," another answered. "Milk, herbs, songs, even alpha commands. And nothing worked?" "Nothing." My hands slowed. The sound crawled under my skin. It wasn't just noise. It felt sharp, like something pulling at my chest. I told myself to ignore it. I had been sold to this palace 3 years ago. My pack called it a contract. I called it abandonment. One morning, my things were packed, and by nightfall, I belonged to someone else. They told me to be grateful. They said survival was better than love. I believed them. "Move," a noble snapped when I didn't notice her approach. "I'm sorry," I said, shifting aside. She wrinkled her nose. "Watch where you breathe." "Yes, my lady." She walked off, heels clicking like judgment. The crying echoed again, sharper, desperate. "What's wrong with them?" a young maid whispered. "Bad blood," someone replied. "I heard the Luna died giving birth." "Cursed pups, then." "Lower your voice," another warned. "Walls here." I swallowed. My hands were shaking now. I had never seen the Alpha King up close. Everyone said he was cold, ruthless, untouchable. They said his eyes could make wolves bow. They said his silence was worse than his anger. I had only seen his shadow once, tall and still at the end of a hall. The pups cried again. I stood without thinking. "Where do you think you're going?" a maid hissed. I was told to clean the West Hall," I lied. She narrowed her eyes but turned away. Each step toward the nursery made my chest tighter. The air felt heavy, thick with fear and failure. Outside the doors, healers argued in low voices. "We're running out of time," one said. "They won't sleep. They won't eat. The Alpha is losing patience." A sharp voice cut through them. "Enough." Everything went silent. I knew that voice without seeing the face. The Alpha King stood inside, tall and unmoving, his back to the door. I saw him only for a moment before a guard blocked my view. "Leave us," the Alpha ordered. The healers rushed out, eyes down. I tried to step back, but my foot caught the edge of a rug. "Hey," a guard shouted. "You." "I'm sorry," I said, dropping my gaze. "I was just—" "What are you doing here, Omega?" he demanded. "I clean," I said. "I was assigned nearby." The guard grabbed my arm and shoved me away from the door. "Don't get ideas," he said. "You don't belong here." The crying burst louder, like it sensed me. I froze. "Did you hear that?" a maid whispered. "They got louder. Like they're angry." My heart pounded. My mouth opened before my brain caught up. "I think I could." "Silence," the guard snapped. "How dare you speak?" "I just meant—" "You mean nothing," he said. "Get back to your place." Laughter followed his words. Soft. Cruel. Heat burned my face. I nodded and stepped back, every part of me screaming. The Alpha King finally turned. Our eyes met for half a breath. His gaze slid past me like I was air. "Remove him," he said calmly. The guard shoved me hard. I stumbled and caught myself on the wall. "Yes, Alpha," the guard replied. I walked away without looking back. Behind me, the pups screamed. I hid in a service corridor and pressed my hands over my ears. It didn't help. The sound stayed inside me, echoing, aching. "Why won't you stop?" I whispered. The crying softened for a second. I sucked in a breath. "That's impossible," I muttered. The sound rose again, raw and broken. Something inside my chest twisted. I didn't know why it hurt. I didn't know why my feet carried me closer again, only to the corner this time. "I'm not allowed," I told myself. "I'm nothing," I said aloud. "They don't need me." The pups cried like they disagreed. I slid down the wall and sat on the cold floor. "Please," I whispered, not sure who I was begging. "Please stop hurting." The crying didn't stop. But for the first time, it changed. It felt like it was aimed at me. And deep in my chest, something answered back. The next morning, the crying didn't stop. It followed me through the halls, through the kitchens, through the servants' wing. Every sound scraped at my nerves. "Still screaming," a cook muttered. "They kept the alpha up all night," another said. "Good," someone laughed. "Maybe he'll finally see they're cursed." I flinched. By midday, my hands were shaking so badly I dropped a tray. "Watch it," a maid snapped. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'll clean it." I knelt fast, heart racing. The crying rose again, sharp and uneven. My chest tightened like it had the night before. I stood before I could stop myself. "I think I can help." The words came out quiet, but the room went silent. "What did you say?" a healer asked. "I said I think I can help soothe the pups," I repeated. Then the laughter started. "Did you hear that? An omega-maid? He must be joking." "I'm not," I said, heat crawling up my neck. "I heard them. They're not sick. They're scared." Anger replaced laughter. "You dare speak of royal heirs?" a noblewoman demanded. "Know your place," another snapped. "He wants attention," someone sneered. "Or something worse." "That's not true," I said. I just... A hand struck my face. I staggered back, stunned. "You filthy thing," the noblewoman said loudly. "Don't pretend concern hides ambition." "I don't want anything," I whispered. "Liar," she said. "All omegas want something." Guards entered fast. What's going on? One asked. He insulted the heirs, the noble said. He claimed power he doesn't have, another added. I didn't insult anyone, I said. Please. Just let me explain. Silence, a guard barked. The Alpha King entered. The room froze. I dropped to my knees without being told. Speak, an advisor said nervously. He claimed he could soothe the pups, the noblewoman said. An omega-maid. I waited. The Alpha King didn't look at me. He didn't say my name. He didn't speak at all. The silence crushed harder than shouting. Remove him, the advisor said quickly. Before this spreads. The Alpha King turned away. That was all. They dragged me out. 10 extra shifts, the guard said. Night duty, another added. Scrub the lower halls. Yes, I said. My cheek burned. My chest burned more. That night, I cleaned until my hands bled. You brought this on yourself, a maid whispered as she passed. I was just trying. Don't, she said. Trying gets you killed. The crying returned after midnight. I leaned against a wall, exhausted. Why do you sound like that? I whispered. What do you want from me? The crying surged. Footsteps approached. I pressed into the shadows. Something is wrong, an advisor said quietly. They won't bond, another replied. They reject everyone. The Alpha is afraid, the first said. I held my breath. He won't say it, another voice replied. But I see it. What if they reject him too? Impossible, someone scoffed. Is it? Silence. They're rejecting the palace, the advisor said softly. My heart skipped. I stepped back as they left. Alone again, I slid down the wall. They're not broken, I whispered. They just don't feel safe. The crying softened, just a little. I closed my eyes. Somewhere deep inside me, something stirred. And this time, I didn't push it away. I was born wrong. That was the first thing my pack ever taught me, even before they said it out loud. Your scent is strange, my mother used to whisper. Keep him away, an elder would say. He'll bring trouble, another warned. I learned to stay quiet early. Quiet kept me fed. Quiet kept me breathing. Other omegas smelled sweet, soft, comforting. I smelled sharp, unsettled, like a storm that couldn't decide where to break. No alpha wanted me near. No omega wanted me close. When pups cried in the den, I was always sent away. Don't touch them, my pack leader snapped once. Why? I asked. Because, he said, eyes hard. They stop crying when you do. That's not normal. So they hid me. They taught me to bury it. Control yourself, my mother said, gripping my shoulders. I don't know how, I whispered. Then learn, she replied. I learned by pain. By rejection. By silence. I thought I'd buried it for good. Until the pups. That evening, the crying turned frantic. It's getting worse, a healer shouted. One of them hasn't slept, another replied. His breathing is uneven. They're exhausting themselves. I scrubbed faster, heart pounding. Move, a guard snapped. I'm cleaning, I said. Not there, he replied. Go to the nursery. I froze. What? I asked. They want the room spotless, he said. Another failure. I nodded before he could change his mind. The closer I got, the louder the crying felt, like it was inside my skull. Careful, a healer muttered as I entered. Don't get near them, another warned. He's just here to clean, someone said dismissively. They argued over the pups like I wasn't there. It's the milk, one said. No, it's the bedding, another argued. It's the bond, a third snapped. Enough, an advisor barked. You're all guessing. One pup let out a broken sound, thin and weak. My breath hitched. That one's fading, a healer said sharply. He's exhausted. We need to sedate him. If we do, we risk. And if we don't, we lose him. The Alpha King stood near the crib, fists clenched. Fix it, he said. No one spoke. Finally, an advisor turned to me. You, he said. Clean. Then leave. Yes, I replied. My hands trembled as I wiped the crib rails. The crying stabbed deeper with every sound. Why does it hurt? I whispered to myself. The healers stepped out one by one, arguing. Try again later, one said. We've done all we can, another replied. The Alpha King left last. He didn't look at me. The doors closed. Silence fell, broken only by the pups. I stood there, frozen. I shouldn't, I said aloud. One pup gasped, tiny chest shaking. My body moved before my mind agreed. I stepped closer. Don't, I warned myself. Don't remember. Don't feel. I'm not touching you, I whispered. I promise. I knelt beside the crib. The crying faltered. I sucked in a sharp breath. That's not possible, I murmured. The other pup whimpered, softer now. I won't take anything, I said quickly. I won't bind. I won't claim. My voice shook. I know you're scared, I whispered. I know this place feels wrong. The crying dropped another notch. My chest burned. Memories flooded back. A pup in my old pack, screaming. My hands reaching out. The sudden calm. The fear in adult eyes. Monster, someone had whispered back then. I'm not, I said now. I swear. The pup's breathing slowed. I pulled my hands back, heart racing. I'm sorry, I whispered. I shouldn't be here. The crying didn't rise again. They didn't sleep. But they listened. Terror wrapped around my spine. If anyone sees this, I muttered, I'm dead. The door creaked. I jumped back fast, dropping my cloth. A guard peeked in. You done? He asked. Yes, I said too quickly. He frowned but shrugged. Leave, he said. I bowed my head and walked out, legs weak. Behind me, the pups made small, quiet sounds. Not crying. Waiting. I pressed my back to the wall outside and slid down. I can't, I whispered. I won't survive it again. But deep inside, the secret I never chose was awake. And it wasn't letting me go. The crying came back at dawn. It hit me like a blade to the spine. I dropped the bucket I was holding. Not again, a maid groaned. They were quiet all night, another said. Don't tell me it's starting over. My chest tightened. I told myself to walk away. I'm done, I whispered. I did enough. The crying rose, sharp and panicked. My feet moved anyway. Stop, I told myself. Stop being stupid. I didn't stop. The nursery doors were half open. Voices spilled out. They're worse, a healer said. One of them won't stop shaking. We sedated them too long. No, we didn't sedate enough. You're guessing, an advisor snapped. The Alpha King's voice cut through them. Leave, he said. All of you. Silence followed. I stood frozen in the hall. Go, I told myself. Now. A thin, broken cry slipped through the door. That was it. I stepped inside. What are you doing here? A guard shouted. I clean, I said, barely hearing myself. I was ordered. That order was for last night. I know, I said. But they're crying. That's not your concern. The pups screamed louder, desperate. I can't listen to this anymore, I said. The guard grabbed my arm. Step back. I just need a moment, I said. Please. Absolutely not. The crying peaked. Something snapped inside me. I pulled free. I'm sorry, I said, and rushed forward. Stop him, someone yelled. I reached the crib. My hands hovered, shaking. This is it, I thought. This is where I die. I picked one pup up. Chaos exploded. Are you insane? Put him down. Guards. The pup screamed once more. Then stopped. The room froze. The second pup hiccuped, then quieted too. Silence crashed down like thunder. I held the tiny body against my chest, barely breathing. It's okay, I whispered. I've got you. The pup's fear poured into me. Cold. Lonely. Lost. My knees buckled. I don't want you, I whispered for him. They're loud and cold and angry. My vision blurred. I know, I said softly. I know. The second pup reached out, tiny fingers curling in the air. I pulled him close too. A sound escaped my throat, half sob, half gasp. The emotions hit harder. Rejection. Confusion. Pain too big for such small bodies. I won't leave, I whispered. I promise. The pups breathed together, slow and steady. No crying. No fear. Only quiet. I didn't notice the Alpha King until he spoke. What are you? His voice was low. Shocked. I looked up. He was staring at me. Really staring. Not through me. Not past me. At me. I don't know, I said honestly. My chest burned. My heart raced too fast. You picked them up, he said. Yes. You defied orders. Yes. You risked their lives. I know. Why? He demanded. I swallowed. Because no one else was listening, I said. The room felt too small. The emotions kept pouring in. Fear turned into trust. Loneliness into fragile hope. I couldn't hold it. I swayed. They're bonding, a healer whispered. That's impossible, another said. My legs gave out. I collapsed to my knees, still holding the pups. Pain ripped through my head. Get him off them, someone shouted. No, the Alpha King said sharply. I barely heard him. The world tilted. I can't, I whispered. It's too much. What are you doing to them? An advisor demanded. I'm not doing anything, I said weakly. I'm just feeling. That was when the fear changed. Not the pups. The rooms. He's dangerous, someone said. He could control them. He could influence the alpha line. My vision darkened. Get him out, a noble hissed. Quietly, another added. I clutched the pups tighter. I won't hurt them, I said desperately. I swear. The Alpha King stepped closer. You should be dead, he said softly. And yet they're calm. I met his eyes. So are you, I said before I could stop myself. Shock flickered across his face. My head screamed. I gasped and slumped forward. Strong hands caught the pups. No, I whispered. Please. Darkness swallowed me. I woke to voices. Keep him sedated. We can't let this spread. He's an omega with an ability. An asset. A liability. Dispose of him, someone said. Or control him, another replied. I lay still, heart pounding. Soothing them didn't save me, I realized. It marked me. And for the first time, I was truly afraid. I woke to silence that felt sharpened. Not the calm kind. The watched kind. Don't move, a voice said. I opened my eyes slowly. Stone ceiling. Iron bars on the window. 2 guards by the door. I'm awake, I said. You don't need weapons. Orders, one replied. My wrists were free, but the room felt smaller than a cell. I sat up. Where are the pups? I asked. No one answered. My chest tightened. You took them away, I said. Didn't you? They're alive, a guard said flatly. That wasn't comfort. Hours passed. Maybe more. Time blurred when no one spoke to you. The door finally opened. The Alpha King stepped inside. The guards bowed and left. He stood there, hands behind his back, face unreadable. You collapsed, he said. I know. You frightened my court. I know. You touched my heirs without permission. I know. Silence stretched. You didn't hurt them, he said. No. You calmed them. Yes. Explain. I can't, I said. Not fully. His eyes narrowed. Try. I chose my words carefully. I feel what they feel, I said. Fear. Rejection. That's all. You're an omega-maid, he said. That shouldn't be possible. I've been told that my whole life. He studied me like a weapon left on the floor. They won't settle for anyone else, he said. My heart skipped. They cried for hours after you collapsed, he continued. They only slept when you were near. I stayed quiet. This palace wants answers, he said. They want control. And you? I asked. I want my sons alive. There it was. He stepped closer. I'll be clear, he said. You will serve them. Only them. I waited. You will live under guard, he continued. You won't leave palace grounds. My jaw tightened. You will surrender personal freedom, he said calmly. In exchange, you live. And if I refuse? I asked. He didn't hesitate. You disappear. Anger flared hot and sudden. So I'm a tool, I said. Or a corpse. You're a solution, he replied. I laughed softly. That's just a prettier word. His gaze hardened. You want gratitude, he said. This isn't that. I don't want gratitude, I snapped. I want choice. He watched me closely. Choose, he said. Silence pressed in. I thought of the pup's fear. Their tiny hands reaching. I agree, I said finally. Relief flickered across his face before he hid it. Good, he said. You'll be protected. By who? I asked. By me. That should have meant something. It didn't. Days passed. They moved me to rooms near the nursery. Guards everywhere. You'll get used to it, a servant said quietly. Will I? I replied. The pups refused everyone else. Healers tried again, one whispered. They screamed, another said. I held them. I spoke softly. I'm here, I murmured. You're safe. They slept. Rumors spread faster than truth. He's controlling them. He's manipulating the alpha. He's dangerous. Jealous eyes followed me. One official smiled kindly. I'm here to help, he said. You're overwhelmed. Thank you, I replied. He listened. He nodded. He asked questions. Too many. That night, I overheard whispers. He knows too much. He's telling them everything. I pressed against the wall, heart pounding. The palace wasn't safer. It was sharper. And I knew then. Surviving here would cost more than obedience. He was the first one who spoke to me like I mattered. You look tired, he said softly one night. Anyone would be. I glanced up, wary. I'm fine. You don't have to lie, he replied. Not to me. His name was Corin. A palace official. Not high-ranking, not low either. Safe, I thought. That was my first mistake. He brought tea sometimes. Drink, he said. It helps with the strain. Why are you being kind? I asked once. He smiled. Because you're still a person. That word stayed with me. Person. We talked in quiet corners while the pups slept. They're heavy, I said one night. They trust you, he replied. They don't have a choice, I muttered. You do, he said gently. And I want to help you keep it. I told him things I never meant to. I'm scared all the time, I admitted. That makes sense, he said. I don't want to disappear, I whispered. You won't, he promised. Not if I can help it. I believed him. I told him about my pack. How they hid me, I said. How they sold me, I added. That's cruel, he said quietly. You deserved better. No one had ever said that to me. Days passed. Trust grew. Too easily. Then one night, I woke to shouting. Where is he? Someone demanded. Find him. I pressed myself against the wall and listened. He's unstable, Corin's voice said. My blood went cold. He could have harmed them, another voice replied. We need proof, Corin said calmly. We'll make it. My chest felt hollow. He trusts you, someone laughed softly. Of course he does, Corin replied. That makes this easy. I backed away slowly, heart slamming. No, I whispered. The door burst open. Guards flooded in. There he is. Corin said sharply. I warned you. What? I said. No. They grabbed my arms. Check the nursery, Corin ordered. Look for marks, another said. I struggled. I didn't hurt them. Save it, a guard snapped. We reached the nursery. The pups were crying. Loud. Broken. Terrified. My heart shattered. See? Corin said. They're distressed. Because you took me away, I shouted. A healer gasped. There's a scratch, she said. I stared. That's not. He did it, Corin interrupted. I knew he would. The Alpha King entered. His eyes went straight to the pups. Then to me. Did you touch them? He asked. Yes, I said. I always do. Did you hurt them? No. Silence stretched. Corin stepped forward. He's losing control, he said gently. I tried to warn you. The Alpha King hesitated. That pause hurt more than chains. Take him, he ordered quietly. The pups screamed. I turned my head toward them. I'm here, I said loudly. I'm not leaving you. They reached out. Guards dragged me back. Please, a healer whispered. They need him. The Alpha King clenched his fists. Remove him, he said again. The pups' screams echoed down the halls. Each one tore something out of me. I didn't beg. I didn't scream. I just walked. This time, something inside me locked into place. If this is how it ends, I thought, then I'll survive it. Even if I have to burn everything to do it. The cell was cold. Stone walls pressed against my back, the floor hard beneath me. The air smelled of damp and iron. I counted the cracks in the ceiling, traced the patterns in the shadows, and felt the weight of every day that had led me here. I was exhausted, hollow, and yet awake enough to feel every memory scrape at my skin. I remembered my pack. Their faces hidden behind judgment. Keep him away, they had said. You'll bring shame. I remembered the way my mother looked at me sometimes, pity hiding in her eyes. Sometimes fear. I had wanted love, wanted acceptance, and had been given nothing. And now, here, I realized I had spent my life surviving for others. For packs that abandoned me. For nobles that sneered at me. For pups that screamed and cried while I remained unseen. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, not anymore. The sound startled me in the stillness, but clarity settled in its wake. I would survive, not for them. Not for anyone else. For me. Hours passed. Or maybe days. Time became meaningless in this place. I had been left alone to stew in my fears. But when the guard brought my meager rations, there was something different in his eyes. Eat, he said quietly, sliding a tray through the bars. You need strength. I looked up. Why are you helping me? He hesitated, glancing over his shoulder. Because I know what it's like to be invisible here. And because some of us see more than we're supposed to. I studied him, trying to weigh the risk. He was a low-ranking guard, nothing in the grand scheme, but his presence felt like a lifeline. I nodded slightly and took the food, keeping my voice quiet. Thank you. Don't thank me, he said. You'll need to survive first. Everything else can wait. I ate slowly, letting the warmth of the food ground me. My hands were steady now, my mind focused. For the first time, I stopped thinking of myself as prey. I was a player, a survivor. Outside, the palace roared in chaos. I heard shouting carried faintly through the walls, the echo of panic and fear. The pups were restless. Healers argued endlessly about their condition, about who was to blame. I could hear the tension leak through the stone, the desperation. They're refusing to eat, a voice yelled. They haven't slept. They're sick. I clenched my fists. My heart thudded, and something inside me sparked anger, yes, but more than that. Determination. If they wanted me out, I would return, but not broken. Not begging. Not desperate. The guard reappeared later, a shadow at the door. "Tonight," he whispered. "I'll open the locks. You move fast. Don't look back." I nodded. The plan was simple. Speed, stealth, survival. No mistakes. When night fell, I followed his instructions to the letter. The door clicked open silently. I slipped into the corridors, silent as the shadows, my mind clear. No fear. Just focus. I reached the nursery first. The pups cried endlessly, their voices raw and fractured. My chest ached, not from fear this time, but from recognition. I had felt this emptiness before, in packs and in courts. And now, I could do something. I didn't touch them. Not yet. I just knelt nearby, letting my presence speak, letting the world around me shrink to this one corner, this one truth. The crying faltered slightly. I could feel it, the pull of trust, the fragile bond that existed because no one else had understood them. Then the guard signaled. I moved. Out of the shadows, through the halls. Nobody noticed. Nobody intervened. I had learned their patterns, the timings, the weaknesses. Outside, I felt the palace tremble, not literally, but in every unspoken command, every whispered conversation. Panic had spread further than I realized. The Alpha King, for all his power, had been blindsided by the betrayal. His court unraveling. His children restless, refusing to bond with anyone else. And me, once invisible, had become the pivot on which the palace now teetered. I returned not as a servant, not as a mistake to be discarded. I returned as a necessity. I entered the nursery quietly, eyes calm, hands folded. The pups quieted immediately at my presence. Their tiny heads lifted, searching for me, reaching. The room felt different now. I held their gazes, letting them feel the assurance they needed, without bending to anyone's rules. The healers and nurses paused, tension radiating from their shoulders. I could see their confusion, their fear, their respect mingled with disbelief. The Alpha King himself entered last, silent at first, eyes sweeping the room. He stopped when he saw me. For the first time, his expression faltered, no mask, no authority, just a man realizing he had miscalculated. "You," he began, voice low. I met his eyes steadily. "I'm here," I said. Simple. Clear. Controlled. Not pleading. Not begging. The power in the room shifted. Not by decree, not by force, but by recognition. The pups trusted me. The palace, for all its rules and hierarchies, could not ignore the bond one had earned. Whispers floated around, soft and cautious. "He's different. Dangerous. Necessary." I ignored them. My focus remained on the pups, letting them find their calm. I could feel their energy mingling with mine, the fragile trust solidifying into something real. Hours passed. I stayed, silent and still, letting my presence stabilize the room. When the Alpha King finally spoke again, it was measured, cautious. "Leave the room," he said softly, almost as if testing me. I didn't move immediately. "Not yet," I said. "They need me." He looked at me. Not with anger. Not with authority. But with recognition. The pause was long, and I felt it, the acknowledgement that I was no longer beneath notice, no longer invisible. Finally, he nodded, reluctantly. As you wish. But understand this, I am watching. I understand, I said. No fear. Only clarity. That night, as the palace settled into uneasy silence, I realized something important. Survival was no longer about obedience. It was about understanding the power I had, controlling it, and using it to protect what mattered. Not the court. Not the rules. Not the nobles. Me. I was no longer broken. I was no longer bowed. And the palace, for all its dangers and whispers, would feel that shift in ways they had yet to comprehend. Power had shifted. Not by force. Not by favor. But by presence, by necessity, by survival. And everyone, from the lowest servant to the highest advisor, could feel it. I closed my eyes, letting exhaustion settle over me. For the first time in years, I could breathe without fear. I could exist, not as a shadow, not as an omega to be dismissed, but as a force, careful, deliberate, and unbroken. The night stretched on. Outside, the palace whispered and roared. Inside, I held my ground. The pups slept, calm in the center of what I had claimed, not territory, not power, but trust earned. And I knew then, with absolute certainty, that the game had changed. I would survive. And this time, no one would make me kneel. The corridors buzzed, but not with the usual whispers. This was different. Tension hung thick in the air, like smoke before a fire. I moved through the halls quietly, careful not to draw attention, though every head subtly turned when I passed. It wasn't fear exactly, nor reverence, not yet, but recognition. The truth had started leaking, like water through a crack in the palace walls. Corin, the one I had once trusted, had left crumbs too obvious to ignore. Notes hidden, witnesses pressed into silence, and a trail of lies that unraveled faster than he, or anyone, had imagined. They found something, a maid whispered as I passed, voice trembling. About him, another asked. Yes. He betrayed the Alpha's trust, she said. I didn't respond. I had no satisfaction in watching someone fall. I had learned that long ago. Karma had its own rhythm, and it would arrive on its own schedule. All I needed to do was survive, to remain present. The courtroom was packed. Nobles and advisors crowded in, faces sharp, expectant. The Alpha King sat at the far end, his expression unreadable. I stood off to the side, leaning against the wall, eyes trained on the center of the room. Corin was brought forward, hands bound. He looked at me briefly. Surprise? Fear? Guilt? Perhaps all of them. He had always thought me naive. Foolish. Invisible. He had underestimated the pull of truth. The head advisor began listing his crimes: manipulation, deceit, the plot to frame me for harming the pups. Every word felt like slow, deliberate steps in a dance I didn't participate in. I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I simply watched. Corin's face paled as witnesses confirmed the story. Evidence, carefully collected, dismantled his web. His words fell flat, unconvincing. He tried to plead, tried to twist it, but no one listened. His allies shrank, their whispers faltering. Pride had carried him too far, and fear had been faster. I felt something in me harden. Not joy. Not triumph. Just a steady focus, a calm I had earned through months of survival, rejection, and danger. My eyes drifted to the nursery door. The pups were there, quiet now, observing from their safe corner. Their tiny hands reached out, fingers twitching, but they didn't cry. "Why are you looking at him?" a guard muttered. "Because he tried to destroy what matters," I said, voice even. The Alpha King shifted in his seat. His gaze flicked to me once, briefly, before returning to the proceedings. That look, half acknowledgement, half apology, was something I stored carefully. I didn't forgive him. Not yet. Not with words. Trust wasn't words. It was action, and he had failed before. The fall of Corin was quiet in some ways, explosive in others. Offices were reassigned. Guards shifted posts. Nobles whispered and stared, calculating. Their jealousy and fear mixed into a potent cocktail, and I remained outside the storm, steady as stone. Later, the Alpha King approached the nursery, alone. I was sitting on the floor, pups in my lap, their small bodies curled against me. He began. His voice was rough, brittle, the kind you don't often hear from a ruler. I raised a hand, stopping him. "Don't," I said. He hesitated. Eyes flicking to the pups, then to me. "I failed. I should have protected them, all of you." "Words aren't enough," I said. Calm, controlled. The pup stirred slightly, leaning into me as though understanding. "I know," he admitted. The words were heavy, but stripped of defense. They were fragile, and I accepted that. That was all I could. Trust would take longer, and I wasn't ready to offer it freely. The palace shifted in quiet, subtle ways over the next days. People stopped speaking over me, lowered their eyes in recognition, not fear. They did not bow in submission, they merely understood. My worth wasn't loud. It was quiet, undeniable, and it made the corridors feel different, safer, sharper. I continued my duties with the pups, steady and calm. Each day, their trust deepened, and I could feel it pulsing through the nursery, through the halls, through the walls themselves. Others tried to step in, tried to claim authority, but the pups refused. Their needs were simple. My presence was constant. At night, I watched them sleep, small chests rising and falling in rhythmic peace. I whispered softly, "I'm here. You're safe." And it was true. Not because the palace protected them. Not because the Alpha King ruled. But because I had chosen myself, chosen them, and in doing so, the balance had shifted. Karma had come quietly, not with thunder, not with spectacle, but with the inevitability of truth. Corin's fall was not for me, it was merely the result of the choices he had made. And I didn't rejoice in it. I only recognized the justice of it. The Alpha King lingered at the edge of the nursery once, watching me, watching them. His apology hung in the air, unfinished. I said nothing. Silence, for now, was enough. Actions would have to speak for both of us in the days to come. The palace was quieter now. People moved differently, aware of the change but unsure how to respond. Rumors of my bond with the pups spread. Some whispered, afraid. Others whispered, envious. And still others, like the low-ranking guards who had dared to help me before, nodded to themselves, silently grateful. I had survived. Not because I wanted praise, not because I craved attention, but because I refused to be invisible again. I had endured the betrayals, the accusations, the fear, and I had stood steady. And through it all, the pups had remained a constant, grounding me, reminding me why survival mattered, not for approval, but for life itself. The Alpha King finally spoke to me again, quieter this time. "You've changed the balance in this palace." I did what I had to, I replied, not defensively, not arrogantly, but with certainty. He nodded. No words of thanks. None were necessary. Trust, after all, was built slowly, not demanded. As the sun set over the palace, the halls glimmered with candlelight, and the shadows seemed longer, deeper. But I was no longer afraid of them. I had learned that survival didn't mean submission. It meant awareness, control, and the courage to act when everything else threatened to break you. I looked down at the pups, sleeping peacefully in my lap, and I whispered softly, "We're safe now. For as long as I am here, we will be." And in that quiet moment, I realized justice, trust, and recognition could arrive without fanfare. Sometimes, karma came quietly, and sometimes, it arrived just when you had learned to stand unbowed. The morning light was soft, but it didn't soften me. I stepped into the nursery with a quiet purpose. The halls of the palace had changed, subtly, imperceptibly, but enough that everyone noticed. Nobles averted their eyes. Guards paused mid-step. Even the Alpha King's gaze lingered longer than usual. It wasn't fear. They had learned that fear alone wouldn't move me. It was respect, measured and tense. The pups stirred at my presence, tiny hands reaching, eyes blinking open. They curled around me instinctively, but I didn't pick them up. Not yet. I let them rest, let them stretch, let them grow stronger on their own terms. They were mine in one way, yes, but not chains. Not obligations that could bind my life entirely. "You'll hurt them if you step back," a nurse whispered nervously. "They're stronger now," I said calmly. "I won't hold them too tightly. They'll learn their limits." Even the healers blinked. The way I spoke carried weight now, calm, firm, and unshakable. My words were no longer timid whispers swallowed by the court. They were directives, subtle but clear. Later, I found the Alpha King in the study. He didn't look at me the way he had when I first arrived in his sight, cold, measured, almost dismissive. Now his eyes were cautious, studying, like a man seeing an unfamiliar weapon for the first time. "I want to speak," I said. He nodded. "Go ahead." I took a breath, steadying myself. "I am no longer just the Omega-maid you rescued, or feared. I am someone who chooses. Someone who will not exist in the shadows of this palace, or beneath its rules. I will serve the pups, yes, but I will not be their prisoner. Nor yours." He blinked, sharp, but said nothing. He rarely interrupted, and silence was often a form of agreement here. "I will set boundaries," I continued. "I will define what is acceptable and what is not. I will act in their best interest, yes, but I will not be used as a pawn, a weapon, or a tool. I will not be invisible, I will not be ignored, and I will not accept betrayal." The Alpha King's jaw tightened slightly. Not anger, but calculation. He had faced threats before, people trying to seize power, and he knew when someone had genuine strength. My voice, calm but firm, carried that strength. "Your place is what you make it," he said finally, voice low. "I only ask that you honor your bond with them." "I do," I replied. "But the bond does not define me. I am no one's shadow." For the first time, the palace seemed quiet in agreement. Courtiers whispered, guards shifted uneasily, but no one challenged me. It was not defiance born of disrespect, it was recognition. The pups reached for me as I returned to the nursery. Their cries were gone now, replaced with murmurs, soft coos, and gentle curiosity. I knelt, letting them climb into my lap. I held them lightly, letting their small hands trace my arms, their heads resting against my shoulder. I spoke softly, letting them feel safety and calm, but without smothering them. "This is how it should be," I whispered. We care for each other, but we are free to grow. One of them yawned, then shifted slightly, testing their strength. I smiled softly. It was a small thing, but the moment felt immense. Later, in solitude, I confronted the memories I had carried since childhood. My pack abandoning me. The nobles mocking me. Corin's betrayal. Every insult, every rejection, every crushing weight of being invisible, it all rose to the surface. I sat on the floor, pups asleep nearby, and let it flood through me. Tears came, but I did not fight them. I did not apologize to anyone. I did not seek forgiveness. I simply released the burden. You don't define me, I whispered to the empty room. I define me. I could feel it in my bones, the shift, subtle but profound. I was no longer a product of neglect or betrayal. I was no longer bound by fear or need for approval. I was free. The palace began to reflect it. Walls that once seemed heavy now felt open. Corridors that echoed with whispers now carried cautious respect. Guards met my gaze without hesitation. Nobles lowered their eyes, not in fear, but in acknowledgement. The court was healing slowly, not because of rules, but because it had to adapt to the force of someone who would not be ignored. I walked through the halls with the pups by my side, their small fingers intertwined with mine. I let them explore, guided but not controlled. I spoke softly, letting them learn, letting them understand that trust was earned, not demanded. For the first time, I imagined the future, not as a shadow, not as a servant, not as someone discarded, but as someone who could choose. I could step into the light on my own terms. I could protect those I loved while still protecting myself. The Alpha King observed quietly from the distance. His apology remained unspoken, but I did not need it yet. Words were temporary. Actions carried weight. And I had already begun to take my place. As night fell over the palace, I tucked the pups into their cribs, their small bodies rising and falling in steady rhythm. I stayed until they slept completely, then stepped back. I did not linger longer than necessary. This was my choice. I had boundaries now. I had freedom. I walked down the corridors alone, my footsteps echoing softly. For the first time in my life, I felt the strength of self-definition. I was no longer anyone's shadow. I was whole. And in that quiet strength, I finally allowed myself to dream of a future I would choose, not one chosen for me. The morning was quiet, almost unnaturally so. The palace had begun its routines, guards walking their posts, servants moving silently through halls, nobles whispering behind closed doors, but none of it reached me. I felt distant from the pulse of it all, standing at the threshold of my life. The nursery doors were slightly ajar. I paused, hand on the frame, listening. The pups were awake, cooing softly, exploring the blankets and toys. Their small hands reached toward me instinctively, and I knelt, letting them crawl into my lap. "You're ready today," I whispered, tracing their tiny fingers. One of them babbled, a sound that made my chest ache in the most tender way. The other yawned and rested against my shoulder, trusting in calm. I had nurtured them, yes, but they had taught me as much as I had taught them. "I'll always be here," I murmured, even though I knew this moment was temporary. My choices had shaped me, and now I had one final choice to make. I sat with them longer than usual, letting the quiet settle. No one rushed me. The palace itself seemed to acknowledge that today, I held authority over my own fate. I remembered every rejection, every betrayal, every night spent hiding in the shadows of fear. Corin's treachery. The nobles who had whispered behind my back. The Alpha King's initial cold indifference. Every humiliation had led me here, to this point of clarity. I lifted the pups gently, placing them side by side in their crib. "Be strong," I whispered. "And remember, I will always trust you to find your courage." They stirred but did not cry. That small, unbroken trust made my decision easier. I had power here if I wanted it. I could demand obedience, respect, control. I could stay and weave myself into the palace's future. But the weight of that power no longer called to me. I wanted peace, something I had never allowed myself to claim. I rose slowly and left the nursery, walking down the familiar corridors one last time. The guards fell into step behind me, careful not to overstep. Some glanced at me with wariness, others with respect. I didn't need their validation. I had already claimed it for myself. The Alpha King met me at the grand doors, the weight of his presence filling the space. He didn't speak at first, simply studying me with those piercing eyes that had once chilled me to my core. "You're leaving," he said finally, his voice low, cautious. "Yes," I replied. "It's time." He exhaled slowly. The tightness in his shoulders eased, a sign that he had learned something important. "I respect your choice," he said. The words were simple but carried the gravity of a man who had seen too much, feared too much, and learned humility at last. I nodded, accepting it, not with gratitude but with understanding. The palace had changed, the Alpha King had changed, and I had changed. None of it could bind me now. The doors opened onto the palace grounds, and sunlight spilled across the cobblestones. I paused, taking a deep breath. The air was clean and sharp. It smelled of possibility, not obligation. I felt the weight of my scars, the strength they had given me, and the freedom that stretched ahead. I thought of the future, not one dictated by pack or palace, by betrayal or fear, but one I could shape myself. For the first time, it felt real. A servant bowed respectfully as I passed, a guard stepped aside without hesitation, and even nobles lowered their eyes. Not because I demanded it, not because I was feared, but because they understood that I had earned something that could not be taken, self-possession. I walked past the gates, past the walls that had once confined me, and for the first time, the world seemed wide and welcoming. The sun warmed my shoulders, the wind tugged at my hair, and I felt the pulse of life beneath my feet. "I made it," I whispered softly. "I survived. I chose myself. And I'm free." Behind me, the palace remained. It was a place of power, of rules, of whispers and plots, but it no longer contained me. I had stepped beyond the chains of fear, betrayal, and rejection. I had rewritten my story. Ahead of me lay fields, forests, and towns I had never known. I didn't know what would come next, and I didn't need to. The future was mine to shape. Scarred, strong, and resolute, I walked toward it with steady steps. Every footfall felt deliberate, each one a testament to the battles I had fought, the losses I had endured, and the choices I had made. I carried no shadows from the past. Only lessons, strength, and the freedom I had claimed. When the road curved into sunlight, I stopped for a moment and looked back, not with longing, not with regret, but with clarity. The palace would endure. The Alpha King would endure. The pups would grow strong. And I would endure too. I stepped forward again. The wind lifted around me, carrying the scent of earth and possibility. My chest rose and fell freely. My heart was steady. I was no longer the Omega who had been sold, ignored, or used. I was no one's shadow. I was my own. And as I walked into the light, I finally imagined a future built by my own hands. Scarred, yes. strong, undeniably. And free.